Welcome everybody to Casually Hardcore, episode 17. On this episode, I'm, I guess, pleased and very blessed to welcome two special guests. Taylor, coming back for from his first episode, hot off the heels from January. Welcome back to the program. Anything new going on with you, Taylor?
There you go. There I'm back. The fact that you just said, I guess I'm pleased to have these two guests on is the greatest intro anyone has ever done in radio or television, yes. Anything. Like, I was having a bad day, but now, boy, this is the best day I've ever had.
Awesome. I'm glad to help. And welcome you for the first time on the Casually Hardcore podcast, Jonathan Blevins, streamer, father, evangelist. Congratulations on your new promotion and job to senior evangelist, or whatever the official title is. John, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
All right, so on today's program, as like we like to do with this podcast, which always ends up confusing people, because like they'll come in and they're like, what do we, like we talk about, and we try to team up with a lot of like interesting creators, people who are doing things in interesting ways. Taylor is the host of the ForteCatholic podcast, which you guys can be able to check in the description below of this video when we go up on YouTube. But also, John, you're a Twitch streamer and like a evangelist, like, and seeing that, and especially as a Catholic myself, and having kind of like been introduced to your stream and what you do, I was just blown away, because in my mind I was like, what does that mean? Like, how do we do that? And so for anybody watching this podcast, like if you're not Catholic, do not worry. Like, what we want to do here is this: we want to explore the concept of faith, what it means in the age of Twitch and YouTube with social media, like, and that's what this is going to be about. And so we've got kind of our panel. We got Chris, we've got Taylor, and we got John, and that's what we're going to be about. But before we dive into that meaty, probably very interesting conversation, I want to bring up one point as that we talk about video games here a lot. Halo Infinite announced it looks like it's coming out in 2020. John, should it have a battle royale mode? As a Halo fan and as a Fortnite player, I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm super pumped for Halo 6. I've loved all of them, some more than others for sure, but I'm a Halo fan from Halo 1 all the way through. And 100% should have a battle royale. 100%. Any game that wants to succeed in the next 20 years is going to need to have a battle royale. But that was like what I said at first glance. Every time someone asked me, like, yeah, I should. But like then I started thinking, why should it? Imagine, and like those old Blood Gulch days,
yeah,
where the games would just take an hour, and you've got warthogs, you've got ghosts, you've got snipers, you've got rockets. Like everything balances everything out in Halo.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it would just be, not only should it have one, but I think it would be the best battle royale game.
I think it very well could, and that's just where I'm coming from. I'm gonna toss to Taylor. Taylor, battle royale. Obviously, you've been giving John grief for not being good at Fortnite. What do you think? What do you think?
To be fair, I played with John on his stream once, and I think I got 1 kill in the hour and a half. So all of my berating of John is just stupid, because it's anything I say about his Fortnite skills. What I say, I mean the exact opposite. He is so superior to me in just about every way. But anyway, so when it comes to Halo, I was a PlayStation guy from the beginning, and I went over to Xbox at Xbox 360. So okay. I have been over the last few years not only playing new games, but going back and playing all the old series. Like I played through all of Gears in like a year.
Yeah.
So Halo, I now own them all. I have played the multiplayer on all but one of them. I haven't played the story of any of them. So like take this with a grain of salt. But I love the multiplayer, have amazing memories of like being in college and like my first job out of college and guys coming over and we just sit there, play local 4-player co-op. And like it's some of my greatest memories. And like now some of my greatest memories from the past couple of years are playing Battle Royale stuff with my friends. So put those two things together, and like Halo is just the like ultimate shooter experience. So put that together with some Battle Royale, and I think we're gonna have a winner.
Chris, do you have what do you think?
I think the answer is yes, it should, because that's where gaming is right now. But I think that they need to be respectful of their core audience. And so it should be handled like Call of Duty did, where it's done like a blackout mode, so that the people who really want that old school, like one of the things I've really always admired about Halo is they've done like the best ranked basic like PvP, small team against small team. And so I don't want to give that up for Battle Royale.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting and what kind of changed my mind about it is Apex Legends. So Apex Legends like kind of dropped, and it showed us a class-based system for Battle Royale. Like, I was like, oh yeah. And so then when we were thinking of it in context of Halo, I didn't really get, like with Halo 5, we didn't really do the MOBA. I guess they had that MOBA with which was interesting in concept, but at the end of the day, like I was sitting here thinking, like, how cool would it be? And this would apply for like Halo Infinite or any other game in it, is that, like, I think if they do a Battle Royale mode, that it should essentially be like absolutely free and complimentary to the main game. You get it with the main game, maybe you get some cool stuff, but like remove the barrier for entry that Call of Duty Blackout had, where it's like you have to pay for it. Like, you look at how these models work, how it's set up. You got Season 8 for Fortnite just dropped, and so that has that connotation of like you're kind of playing through. It's got all these different things that are changing. So every time it happens, Apex Legends is saying that they're doing the same thing. They're releasing, that kind of model. I think if Halo does it, it can come out alongside. I think if you own Halo 6, then maybe it has some kind of cosmetic effect. But I think they absolutely should hopefully be considering it. If they don't at least consider it, I think, it doesn't have to launch day and date. But I don't want them to suck away the arena. I think it's something that ends up being very complementary to the overall experience. It's going to be interesting to see, because they say 2020, Xbox One, and whatever the Xbox Infinite. I'm calling it an Xbox Infinity just because it just seems to make sense to me. All right.
This would be the final Xbox. So the question is, how much money did they make off of their like loot box system in Halo 5? Because if they made enough, why is the whole Halo game not free?
It's just I would say that they have. And then it's a part of Game Pass. So everything in that is gonna funnel into Game Pass as a whole. It's gonna be interesting to see kind of how it goes, because I really like, as much as we were laughing before the show started, like, I'm not good at Fortnite, and I've accepted that. Like, that was an important,
It's the first step in recovery.
First step in recovery. I love it. Like, I love that it exists. I actually really enjoyed watching John. I'm going to throw up some B-roll of him right now. I've enjoyed watching like his streams, because it's really cool to see what somebody who knows what they're doing. But it's a fun game. It's entertaining to play. Like, even though I was never good at it, I never got a win in Fortnite. I've won, like, I'm going for win number 7 in Apex right now. And just because it's like, okay, there's definitely like a skill gap there. But as far as it goes, like, that's it drives me. Now, like, Julie, my wife, plays video games with me, not interested in Battle Royale whatsoever. And that is the only thing that, like, I know that if Halo comes out with it, and I'm like, if it sucks me in, it's going to be hard, because it's going to be like, oh man, I want to play this. And she'll probably, hopefully she'll play with me. All right. Any other thoughts on Halo 6? Because we've got
a little. I think it would be super cool if they kept exactly the model they've had, like, especially with having like the double team and squads, and then like a hardcore mode where, for MLG and stuff. And then if they took all those things and their amazing ranking system and did that in the Battle Royale, and had a similar ranking system in the Battle Royale, and you could do duels, you could do hardcore, and so you still have both. I mean, it would take a lot of work, I'm sure, but that would just be fire. I don't know if I'd play another game besides that.
You think if Halo 6 has that Battle Royale, that could pull you from Fortnite?
Oh, it will. I will play Halo for at least a month straight when it comes out, no matter what. Even if it doesn't have a Battle Royale, I'll probably play.
You're jumping in, but what sinks you, what essentially, because, like, let's talk about this for a minute, because you got Apex and Fortnite, and in the context of Halo, right? Halo has Battle Royale. Like, what does it? Is it the Halo brand? Is it your connection with its past that would, like, I'm talking about, like, where you would legit leave Fortnite? Like, I don't see anybody leaving Fortnite. I don't see you doing it. I see where, like, you would go and, like, check this out and come back, and same kind of thing for me. Like, these games exist and they exist in a way that you can jump in and like, okay, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to go experience something else. But you think Halo could say like, all right, Fortnite is done? That's what I'm curious.
Yeah, I think the nostalgia part for me is huge. Like if they keep those themes that everyone loves, like if you get 2 kills and it's like double kill, like, yes, I will never play Fortnite again. That is so fun. And like, running riot, like that would just be fire.
Yeah. So John, sorry, Taylor, you said that you've never played any of the stories of Halo, but you coming from PlayStation, having kind of played the multiplayer, and then obviously playing a battle royale with your friends, like, is it the fact that let's say we're all like we all squad up, we're all 4-man, we're running in Halo, like, is that enough to get you, like, does that invest you into the franchise and things like that?
It does, and I think like the gunplay in Halo is the winner, right? And I think what's interesting for me is like, Apex came out and like, everybody's all over it. I enjoy it, but I'm not really a fan. Okay. I don't like the gunplay. Like, it's clean. It's a much cleaner version, like battle wise, than Fortnite. But like it's so random to me with the damages. It's like, it's like I just put 8 bullets in his head and he killed me with 1 shot. Like I don't understand. So like I think with Halo's gunplay, it'll essentially be like, I think what it would do is take like the fun of Fortnite, and kind of the fun of like playing that with your friends, and combine that with the gunplay of Halo. Like, oh man, that would be sick. And like now I'm even more excited ever since John said the ranking system. That's what I've always thought about. It's like, how do you know truly that you're better than your friends at these battle royale games, because you never play against each other? So I think that ranking system would be a heck of a lot of fun.
I mean, you just take that into what is I would call a core aspect of what Halo does real well, and that's custom. John, you were running your tournament, and one of the things that unfortunately happened right before it is that kind of took away the ability to run those custom those custom setups. But to be able to do Halo Battle Royale and to spin up we're going to do our own custom match. We can set what kind of rules. We can do all these different things. After literally seeing how Respawn took on their take for Battle Royale and seeing how long Halo has been in development with all the influences that's happened over since Halo 5 first launched. We're talking about like loot box controversy. We're talking about how is it monetized, how has it maintained itself up, and then the introduction of Game Pass being, Microsoft really wants people into that, and then Halo 6 launches into Game Pass. I think that it's just, there's so much potential. Like for me, like you said, like the double kill, does just that repeated sense of it, because anyway, and as long as I don't have to build anything, because that was my weakness. Like give me my overshield,
Imagine if Halo finds a way to work in oddball and capture the flag in a battle royale setting.
They could do it.
It would just be, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that out there now. It would be insane.
Yeah. There was some stuff like they did in 5, like with the kind of their arena model, right? Where it was kind of like, you had no shields. You're trying to get the flag and move it around. Like some of that stuff was like round based. I thought they did an interesting take. And I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll follow it. If Halo, hopefully we get you back at some point. But if Halo definitely has Battle Royale, it's like, all right, guys, we're bookmarking this for most likely the fall of 2020.
All day long. They could have multiple maps. So you could have big team battle, and then you could have like huge team battle and huge team battle free for all, huge team battle oddball. Like, so you throw all these other modes on this battle royale map or this set of battle royale maps.
But like John said. But like John said, talking about like Blood Gulch, talking about like all of these like iconic things that from just that nostalgia factor, like, dude, we're landing in Blood Gulch. Like, cause okay, cool, we're landing here in Lockout. We're landing here, or Blackout. Like they changed the names as it releases. Like that's one of the things that was interesting about the Blackout in Call of Duty. It was just like, oh, this is here's Nuketown, here's this. Like, man, I don't know. I've got myself typed, and
it'd be sick. Portals. Oh my gosh.
Oh. Anyway, so make it happen. I know, Bungie, you're a huge fan of this podcast, and on that note, let's hard pivot and talk about Jesus. So our main topic, Catholicism, faith, the new evangelization, and the age of Twitch, like iTunes, YouTube. We're all, it's like, for me, like my faith is, I always kind of said it's a part of my DNA. Like I was born Catholic, I was raised by Protestants, and then I went to a Catholic university. And for me, that was like, it was a real interesting experience, especially as my development within both my faith and my understanding, and now as an adult teaching confirmation. But also there is the side that, I love video games. I, play, we stream, and, we talk about video games. And so I really wanted to kind of sit down with you guys and get a couple of perspectives. I got a couple bullet points here. Like, what about gaming brings us together? What kind of set of guidelines should we follow? Is there a line when it comes to the specific games that we play? Like, especially if we're representing ourselves from that faith background. If I'm here to say, like, you can reach out to me, we're praying for you, things like that. Like, what is there a line? Should there be a line? Dealing with like harassment, how we like engage with, those that, come in, and whether they misunderstand or they just want to be here to troll and things like that. Like, how do we manage all of that? How do we deal with all of that? And that's essentially the themes. And then, I know Chris has some interesting questions that we were kind of talking about, when we were setting up the show and scheduling. So I'm going to toss to Taylor real quick. Taylor, so you started a Catholic podcast, over 100 episodes. You do this for a living. You go around the world. In context with technology, like what guiding principles like drive you? Like what got you started? What keeps you going? And then, but as far as it goes, like I'm gonna kind of let you talk because I'm done monologuing for a minute.
Just kind of a drowned down question. It's like, I'm done. I'm just gonna start talking now. So what's interesting for me, like anytime with the new evangelization, it's all about new methods, new order, and new vigor. Like it's all about finding a new way to say these old truths, right? And that's like with all three of you guys, it's why I'm so interested in what y'all are doing. Because like no one to my before I met you guys, no one to my knowledge was sharing faith within this video game context, right? And like video games are the single number one media platform in the entire world, right? It blows my mind. I was looking at that financial numbers the other day from like the biggest movies last year and then like the worst video game, and they're like the same. Like it's ridiculous how crazy it is. Like
Netflix coming out saying like their competition isn't HBO, it's Fortnite. Like
right.
No, we're not competing against Game of Thrones. We're competing against John streaming. That's really that. John, you're hurting Netflix, dude.
John's gonna take down Netflix, man.
Tell you what, Netflix brings back Punisher, and I'll quit streaming.
Dude, I am so like honestly so heartbroken. I know this is a sidestep, but like I am sad. Like the second season of that show was phenomenal. Anyway.
So the second season started right when Exodus 90 started. So I'm gonna watch that at Easter. That's gonna be a weird Easter. like oh hey, Jesus is risen.
Oh,
so,
man.
Go ahead, Taylor.
It's going to be worth the wait, man. So, yeah. So like what y'all are doing within video games is what I'm trying to do within the Catholic radio and podcast world. Like there's been this one method of Catholic media for so long, and just trying to find a new way to add some vigor to it. I think that's my favorite word in this whole thing, ardor or vigor. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I'm good at anything, it's ardor and vigor, So like trying to bring that and like bring in new methods and bring in people who are also doing that. Like that's how I met John and brought him onto the show as a guest, and now he's a regular on the show. And it's like you're finding people that are doing that sort of thing so that we can reach out into all these different places with this time-old message, like this message that doesn't change, that's true, good, and beautiful. But let's find new ways to show that truth, beauty, and goodness.
Chris, I want to let you chime in here for a bit before I'm gonna toss to John.
So I'm the non-Catholic here.
He's Catholic adjacent.
I am extremely Catholic. My mom calls me her good Catholic son, even though we're Protestants, because I went to college with Brian's younger brother, and I lived in a house full of Catholics, and the house was actually passed down from one set of Catholic college students to another. And so I just got brought into the fold because I knew a bunch of them. And so we were like right next to the church. So like every church event spilled into our house. And so we were always there. Next thing you know, like I'm involved in like youth leadership stuff and all this, I'm observing my holy days of obligation and I'm doing all these things, but I'm not Catholic. And so I have a lot of respect for the Catholic Church, and that's a whole nother conversation about my own personal faith. But what I think is interesting about thinking about the Catholic Church and gaming is that the Catholic Church is a very long running thing. And there's a lot of things that protect that. You wonder, you look at like, okay, we can have like a bad CEO do damage to a company overnight. Well, what stops the Catholic Church from having a bad pope, which they've had bad popes, and having a few priests go off the rails? And what stops it from bringing the whole thing down the way you would anything else? And it's because there's these core canon beliefs, there's these core protections built in. So when you talk about bringing in gaming, like a lot of my questions are, how do you protect it? Because you can't just not change. You can't just say, I'm just going to ignore this huge force that is gaming, where there's all these young eyeballs that are passionate about believing in something and they have this hobby, but there's no reason that we can't say, hey.
Yeah. In context of that, I was actually told by a priest who I think had been recently just like fatigued and beaten up online. And he was, he's like, just avoid it. It's horrible. And I'm like, I can't in good conscience surrender that space. Like if I'm not sitting here and I don't feel like I need to, beat anybody's head over talking about Jesus, I'm here to love people. Like I love talking about games. And for some reason, I also love humanity. And those two things drive this, you have to, like, I mean, we can get into it at another day. Like it's a longer conversation when it goes into why and how God has impacted my life considerably. And for me, I've always kind of said, like, he's so real to me. He's impacted me so much. I have no excuse to do, to not. Like, he infused me with passion for video games, and it's never gone away. I'm in my 30s. I'm a dad. I love playing games with my kids. It's changed. I don't play, violent, horribly violent video games. Mortal Kombat, they're all talking about Mortal Kombat 11 now. And I'm like, not a game coming into my house. As a kid, I would, like, man, where's Mortal Kombat? Let's get it. Oh, it's the SNES code to turn on the red blood. Like, oh man, gosh. Like, but now as an adult, I'm like, I definitely am becoming my parents, because I'm like, no, I don't want my kids to, like, they're too young for that.
Punisher the video game.
Like
Mortal Kombat 11.
Chris, I jumped in on that because I think, like I just had that thought. Yeah. But do you have any?
So like your first question is like, what is it about gaming that brings people together? And it's the very same things that bring people together in any other organization, faith included. And so what's really unique is just looking at gaming and directly like Christianity, because the themes are all there. You see these games, you see plots following the very same plots. And so there's this natural overlay where you see people passionate about a character and passionate about rebirth and like all these things. And it's like passionate about forgiveness and the power of just like conviction and integrity and all of these qualities. There's this natural parlay to like, okay, and when I turn the video game off, what gives me those same guiding principles? What gives me that same conviction, that same integrity, that same strength of character? There is a total natural correlation, and it makes 100% sense to me that like the Catholic Church would have an interest in gaming in this overlap. I just don't know what that looks like.
John, you obviously work for the church, as well as you're, a part-time Twitch streamer. I don't know, like, what would you consider yourself? Part-time, full-time?
Yeah, part-time, like 12 to 14 hours.
I don't understand. Like, for me, from a streaming perspective, it's like I don't know, like how one would consider like your employment, like yourself, like that would be your. I always view it contractually, like you're a contractor. You're, it's your business kind of concept. What do you think to what Chris was talking about? As well as the overall theme there.
Yeah, so Chris had some awesome points, and the Catholic Church is always a little slow. Whether
I don't think we always used to be, though. Like I thought, like like there was a time where like we were driving technology, like for the time being, and then now there's a time where we're trying to catch up.
Were we? Yeah, probably. I mean, before I was born, maybe.
Yeah, like contact. We're talking 2,000 years.
The Middle Ages, when like the last time the church was like relevant every week was like Beethoven writing a mass on Tuesday, and they played that music on Sunday. We've
Right.
gotten away from that.
Original sense.
For sure. And so, and sometimes it's good to be patient and see what's up.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be a flaw. And so, for instance, like YouTube, Bishop Robert Barron, and I'm sure there were people before him, but really was the first one to like use YouTube as a way to evangelize, and it took off. And I mean, the Word on Fire organization and all the stuff that he's been able to do with Brandon Bott has been huge. And he just did it. He just entered that like atmosphere. And since then, sure, we can all think of like Catholic people who do YouTube, but there's not a lot. Like there's certainly still not a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a place where people are, right? As Chris said, thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of eyeballs are attached to these screens. And so we've got to be present there if it's not bad in itself, and YouTube is not bad in itself. And the same thing is with video games. Like so you've been streaming, I think, longer than me. But I was the first.
When did you start, like, specifically?
Last March. So it's been like a year for me.
Okay, so, oh man, we started actual streaming 2 years this June. So yeah, you've come in, like, we've been doing a little bit longer, but I don't consider ourselves streamers. We consider ourselves YouTubers who occasionally are live.
Sure. Okay. So for all intents and purposes, I'm the first Catholic streamer that has used streaming for online evangelization that I know of. And I'm sure there's other ones who just didn't have their brother be ninja and so didn't blow up right away. And so I'm blessed in that way, and and he encouraged me to use the platform to.
That's really cool that he did that. Yeah.
What's that?
That's really cool that he did that. Like, to say, like, go do this thing.
Yeah. I asked, and I was like, dude, like, are you sure? I don't want to feel like I'm riding your coattails, and I'm playing video games anyway with my friends. And he's like, dude, you should do it. You'd be good at it. And it's crazy because I tried it 2 years ago, and I was bad. I couldn't play video games and talk at the same time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm just playing Fortnite, and it just happened.
It's a skill.
Yeah, I call it a gift for real because I didn't have it 2 years ago. Okay. Like, I tried with Madden, and Madden's even easier to play and talk at the same time than Fortnite. And it just like I just was doing it, and it started happening and started working. And so there's a couple Catholic streamers I've met out there now who are trying to do it, but we need more, first of all. And second of all, there are a lot of, I just want a little disclaimer, there are a lot of good Protestant streamers who've been doing it for years. Pastor Susie is a good friend of mine, and he's crushing it. He's doing it full time. He's doing what I would love to do. We can talk about that more later if you want.
Yeah, I would love to know more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able to do like what I want to do on my stream. I just don't have the time. And so there's so many ideas I have that would make it so much better and be able to really get people into small groups and evangelize better. But right now I just don't have time to do it. So, like,
for an aside for later, let me know like how we can kind of connect up on that, because I think it's important, because the whole point is that, like, when I was told, and I love the priest who was talking to me about it, was about, like, I was like, no, like, I don't want to surrender. Like, I feel like my, a part of me is called to be present and to love and to pray for these individuals. And I like how you've done it. Like, I haven't found what works for Brian in context, because, like, Work to Game isn't a Catholic channel. Like, Chris is obviously Protestant. I say he's Catholic adjacent because he even married a Catholic. So it's like,
oh, she's gonna get you, dude.
But it's like, as far as it goes, like, I can't not be Catholic. Like, it's not like there's not like a switch. It's like how I engage with people, with everything, with every comment, with when I talk with people, and that's important. And I think that's where, like, to what you're saying and what you want to do, I want to know more about that. And if we have time, we can talk about it today. If not, we'll have to have you back on to talk about it. But I think it's like where games come involved is that there is essentially like this great language that we can talk about games. We can get to know each other, and you kind of have that small group, that kind of presence. I think what we need to do, like, from the evangelization perspective, and this kind of ties into, like, what kind of guidelines should we operate on, and what, like, is there something that like, hey, here's what to do, here's what not to do, here's what you want to kind of play, here's how you want to engage. Because, like, when, like, as a Catholic, like, there's the humility prayer, and it's that I've always said, and it's ironic in a way, that I'm like, I don't want to be famous. Like, I do not care for that at all. We could talk about how, like, your indirect relationship with your brother, especially with how he blew up last year. But in context, like that to me is not what I want. But then the irony is I have a camera pointed at me. People see my face and hear my voice. My goal is not to be famous. My goal is that I feel like I'm called to be in this space and then do what I'm supposed to do and put it out in the world. How do we balance that? Like, what kind of guiding principles should we operate on? Do you understand? Like, I want to make sure that I'm not like confusing the point, because it's like it's something I constantly worry about. Like, am I doing this to elevate Brian, or am I doing this to elevate Christ in the space? John.
Yeah, so I agree with you 100% that it's something, it has to be on the forefront of anyone who's doing this mind, to make sure that God is always first and that we're not trying to glorify ourselves. My best friend Joel Stepanek just wrote a book on humility, and he's out, I actually flew him out to my parish. He's here right now. And he gave, what's that?
I was like, get him on.
Dude, he's awesome. And he gave a talk last night about the book. And one of the things he said was that the way that you work on humility is by building your confidence. And it kind of sounds like, whoa, what is that? But like when you build your confidence and you're confident in who God made you to be, then you can love others better and you can want them to be elevated to a higher level than yourself.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really, and I've been kind of living that this year. And now he said that so I can put a name to it. It's like being confident in the gospel and confident in who God made me to be, and that I'm not going to be for everyone, and that I'm not doing it to be famous. And as long as I'm continuing to be confident in who God made me to be, and that I'm, doing it to evangelize and not for those reasons, I think it's helped me to set those guidelines. And we can talk more. Let the other guys share, I guess.
I'll toss to Taylor, but on that note, John, I want to make sure that I want to get his contact or a link to his book so we can include that in the description below, because that sounds like something that I definitely want to really read, because like, these are questions I ask myself. Like, like what if we ended up like being real big, like, and this became a full-time thing, like, how do I balance that? How do I justify that? And I like that. It's the confidence in humility, like that God who made me to be. Chris, do you have a thought?
So, I mean, this is what set of guidelines is. It's a hard road, because the natural knee-jerk reaction would be to make it black and white. The knee-jerk reaction would be to say these behaviors are not okay, period, end of story. And these behaviors are, but I think you have to have a lot more trust. One of the things we talked about kind of right before we went live is like, how do you decide who to trust? And there's something about like, if you hire somebody for a position, right, and then you think they're the right person, you have to be willing to like let go a little. So if you ask for more people to be Christian streamers, and then they go out and they do it, then you don't get to then go back and say, oh, I wish that you hadn't and like you didn't. So you have to be okay with kind of their methodology and know that overall it's headed the right direction, even though there might be, there's going to be some misquotes, there's going to be some controversy, but overall, I mean, if any of you have seen Matt Pat's post for this week, gaming has raised so much. In 2018, just the streamers he looked at over like a 2 or 3 day period raised over $20 million for charity in 2018. And yet when you go look at 2018 news articles, that is not the side of YouTube gaming that you hear about. And so you have to be okay knowing that there's going to be some people that are kind of misquoted and pulled out of context, but the overall direction could be something really positive.
John, how do you deal? Sorry, Taylor. I keep looking at John and thinking Taylor. Taylor, how do you?
That's the best compliment I've ever received. We
got like if Chris would fully grow out his beard, like we'd have a quorum here.
Well, no, he gets to grow out a beard and become Catholic, and then he'll finally fit in on his own show.
One of these things is not like the other. Taylor, like, we're talking about guidelines. We're talking about these principles. If anything else, like, you, in my mind, are the senior here. You've got way more experience, in the online space, being that you've had a podcast and you've been putting that out there into the world for what, 2 years? Like if you do an episode a week, that's like over 2 years now. So, tip the hat. We submit the floor to our senior here. What guidelines? For me today, what guidelines? Because you say you want to bring the fun and the joy back into the conversation around, Catholicism. For me, I just relate, that's one of the reasons why, like, we talk about games, is because games are fun, they're joyful. I think they're throughout all human history. We've been playing games from the beginning, playing games in the garden, John.
John.
John Taylor Christ.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas. We just need a Thomas and we'd have the whole
There
thing.
we go.
First of all, credit to Joel Stefanik, because I was about to bring up that book and John did anyway. One of the things that you said way at the beginning of this conversation was like the whole thing, like, I don't want to be famous. And what's interesting is, like, I think a lot of people are afraid of that. And like we have been given gifts that we were supposed to use, like everybody, period. A lot of people have been given gifts that are more public gifts, right? Speaking, evangelizing, catechizing, these types of things, right? So
good looks.
Yeah, exactly. Like John of the four of us. So
John Taylor Thomas, yeah.
So for one interesting thing that I have always struggled with is like being, I don't mind being in front of people. And I'm like, well, am I prideful? And like, I've been wrestling with that and going through that question for the last 10 years, right? And like, what I've found is God needs to be first. There's probably going to be, at least for me, always a 10 to 15% of me that is 85% God and 15%, man, I really like this, And like, I've had to come to grips with like that. I need to grow in that and make that number shrink to make it more, he must increase, I must decrease. But that doesn't negate the good work that God has done in me. It doesn't negate the good work that God has done in anybody that is being a public person. And I think a lot, we're afraid of that pitfall, and it is a pitfall. And like, I've fallen into it. I'm sure a lot of other people have as well. But like, true humility, as John said, is like knowing who we are in God, seeing ourselves as God sees us. And like, he always sees us better than we do. And like, that's the person we need to put forward. And like, this whole like getting famous thing, like now that just means more followers, more views, more clicks, right? And like that, people are afraid of fruit. Like Jesus said that we need to produce fruit. A plant is known by its fruit. So first of all, in our lives, it needs to be like our spiritual fruit. What is the fruit in our spiritual lives, in our families? But then also like, what is the fruit of our ministry? What is the fruit of John's stream? What's the fruit of my show? What's the fruit of y'all's show? And like, if we're doing good fruit, like bearing good fruit, God's going to bless that.
It gave me a lot to think on. Because that's how I love that. My dad always advises me, like, whenever I have a decision to make, he's like, go to confession, go spend some time in adoration, and then go to work. It's like, do this, and do this. And it was really fun because it's how life is funny. My dad was going through, and it still kind of is, but he was going through something with his old employer. And I was like, Dad, you just need to go to confession, let's go to adoration. And then don't worry about it. Like, it's going to take care of itself. And he's like, there's a sense of joy in pride because it's that, like you always it's funny as a parent now, just those things that annoyed me. Oh, you're like, all right, Dad, like we're going to listen to,
one of the wisest men you'll ever meet.
Oh yeah. But it's that, why am I drawing a Scott Hahn? It was like, no matter what, we're going to get in the car. We're going wherever there's a rosary and there's going to be a Scott Hahn talk. And then eventually, and once we do that, then the radio can come on. But it's like, now I find myself going to church doing the same thing with the kids. Like, let's do it. Can we listen to Baby Shark? It's like, sure, we'll get to Baby Shark, but we got to get through like a couple things. Oh yeah.
Scott Hahn has never been the gateway to Baby Shark until now. I'm very proud of him.
He transitions perfectly into Baby Shark.
Hey,
exactly.
Scott Hahn used to be a Protestant. Anyway.
Yeah, Chris, have you read any of those books? Maybe you should listen to some of those tapes, buddy.
Oh yeah, my dad's always working on Chris.
I got set from. I got so much stuff, Catholic stuff. Probably first most expensive wedding gift I was given outside of my immediate family was Brian's dad, and it was all like Catholic DVDs and Catholic books.
Like, dude, that is such a flex. I love it.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's hard to give him gifts.
Generosity.
Oh, my dad, like to a fault, to the point where, as the oldest son, I am budgeting that I might have to take care of him because he's an accountant. I love that man to death, but he is such a yes man. Like if anybody here has ever done Dave Ramsey, you have the nerd and you have it's like, and the free spirit. My dad is the free spirit, and but it's like, so he's generous to a fault. So in my mind, I've always just like, Julie, we should budget because he could give away everything. Like that would not surprise me at all. In fact, if he doesn't, that might surprise me. Like, he didn't give away his entire life savings. That's just the kind of man he is. God gave me the right dad. Absolutely.
Brian, I finally understand you because there are no in the world. How many accountants are free spirits? Like those two things don't go together.
He's great with other people's money. He's fantastic as an accountant. When it comes to his own. He loves so much that it's just like he can't. He's a gift giver, like from a love language perspective. Guys, if you're in a relationship, read the 5 love languages. It's incredible. Change your life.
By Joel Stepanek.
Oh man. And then we have a marriage group, just as a quick aside. So we did the love languages, and then we did the 4 seasons of marriage. And our running joke through the 4 seasons of marriage as our marriage group was like it pretty much just says, go read the 5 love languages. Like, are you in the season of fall? Do you understand your spouse's love language? Anyway. Okay. So, but there's a real interesting thing that we're kind of going around when it talks to guiding principles, when it talks to this, because if we were going to say, hey, you should get in this space, there is a danger that we're throwing people to the wolves. There is a danger that, like if you're going to represent something, either you need to know about it or you need to have the ability to go find and figure it out. And sometimes in this age of social media, where it could be a strength and a weakness of the church, it's slowness to respond. But sometimes that slowness actually allows us to get all the facts. Okay, what really did go on? And rather than like a knee-jerk reaction and then find out like, oh, none of that actually happened. It was just, a hoax. Because I always heard when I was a kid, a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can even put its shoes on. I think nowadays with the speed in social media, it can go like all the way to the moon and back. Like it can get around really quickly. And so how do we then, as somebody who professes his faith publicly, how do we then encourage and equip those who are afraid? Because there is a fear here. I am publicly visible. My fear is not that people will harass me and say mean things to me. My fear is that I will say and teach them incorrectly. My fear is that I will say something wrong, and that is my ultimate thing. It's like hey, this is what the church teaches about this. Oh, I was wrong. That's my fear is speaking falsely, but that's also coming from somebody who wants to retire and be a teacher. How do we equip it? Like, John, you actively have, and this is John. So like you actively have like prayer requests. Like you make that a part of your thing. And it's a visible ministry. Like, how do you deal with harassment? How would you advise that young streamer or like somebody who is interested in that space? How do you equip them for this new world, for this new town square?
Yeah. So I would say first that I definitely. So Chris brought up a really good point earlier. Like if we're going to invite everyone to do this, then you're going to get some bad with the good. Mm-hmm. So I would actually maybe change the way that I phrase that earlier. I said we need more people, and I think we do, but I think we need people who are called. Mm-hmm. And so that you can at least avoid some of what would be, unloving or just incorrect, theology. And so how do we get those people? But I think we just need to be formed in real life. Like there's this talk by Christina Kane. She's with Hillsong. And she gave this talk, it was like an hour long. Dude, I was just so inspired. And she talked about King David and how he was anointed. And it wasn't until 20 plus years later that he was appointed. And that whole time he was being formed by God to be ready for his ministry. And one of her points is like, someone's like, oh, I think I'd be good at this, so I'm just going to go do it. And then they go do it, and then they completely burn out because they weren't formed, and they didn't allow God to. She uses this photo analogy of like to take them into the dark room, mm-hmm. So that we can be developed before we do this mission. So I tried streaming 2 years ago, didn't work well. Thought about streaming 5 years ago, didn't feel like I was ready for it, and have been being formed myself in ministry by spiritual directors, getting my degrees in theology. And then I was 31 or 30, when I started finally streaming. And then we've seen fruit. Like I've seen crazy fruit. Like I'm shocked at what God has done. And so I would tell people, if you're not praying, if you're not working on yourself, if you're not learning, continuing to learn, and if you're not ministering to people in real life, then you shouldn't do it online. And that's this is something that I've learned a lot about in the last years. I used to rail on my brother for saying that he had a community, because I was like, oh, you have a community of hundreds of thousands of people. Are any of them going to go to your funeral? Maybe. Are you going to go to any of their funerals? Probably not. What kind of community is that? And so I'm like railing on him, right?
Yeah.
And
as a good older brother should.
Streaming, and I meet guys like you. Like I met Taylor on my stream. I met you. Like Sean, who's become one of my closest friends.
I love Sean and Travis. Like,
right?
That's why we had him on, because I was like, Chris, after the podcast, Chris is like, if I had a tenth their energy, like that would be amazing.
Right,
just oh my gosh. Like anyway, go ahead, John. Like go ahead.
Yeah. So I've met these people. Like I could name 100 people right now that I have never met in person that I've met on my stream, and I feel like they are part of community. So I learned that you can have an online community. You can be close. You can pray together, but that takes a lot of work. And if I didn't know how to have real, authentic community in real life, like in person, then I wouldn't have been able to foster a community online. And I still do think that the communities online need to lead to relationships in real life. But there really is a value to this online community.
Safely.
Yes, very safely. When I met John,
not even with the people. I mean, with people that live near you. Like, you shouldn't be at home on your computer for 24 hours a day talking to your only friends. Like, we were meant to be in relationship, in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this can lead to that. And it's the only way that this is going to start happening, because that's where everyone's at.
Yeah, this is the new town square. Like this, Twitch, YouTube, this is not getting smaller anytime soon. There might be a bubble in which, and there always is with every ad apocalypse and, things like that happen within the social space. But no, this is where people are at. Like, when you look at the numbers and how it's competing with television, and how just the fact that it can be used for, ill, like it can bring about bad ideas and educate people incorrectly. But that's where I think it's so critical that this is something that, that we do. And so Taylor John, in this case, what would should there be programs? From a Catholic school perspective, whether at a university level, should there be programs to, both on board from a theology perspective, but also in this, because like John said, John in this case, said that it's a skill that he had to develop. Now there was a calling that there was like this, but in my mind, one of the best things that I did for my marriage was I went and discerned the priesthood and went on a couple of discernment retreats. It actually taught me how to discern. And that is essentially what, indirectly led me to this conversation we're all having right now today. John, Taylor John. I knew I was gonna mess up. I was like, I'm gonna get it wrong.
I'm gonna write it on my forehead so you can.
I wish on this, at least on this, because I'm looking at over here, I actually have your names under you, and I wish I could put that, etc. Because my eyes are constantly drawn to the beauty of the beard that's on Jonathan.
You guys are so kind.
This is the nicest I've ever been to John for more than 2 minutes.
I know. I've listened to the podcast. I've listened to the podcast. I like the show. I wish you came in and just maybe 10 decibels. Lower.
Multiple people keep saying that, and the more they say that, the more decibels I add.
Yeah, that's why it's guys, start the show at 10 seconds, and you'll have a great body. Anyway, sorry, Taylor. What can we do? What level should either the church be involved or the education piece be involved with this as a platform? Because there is no degree to be an intellectual. There is no degree just to be online. There is no certification course here. Anybody could be, which is a real strength. It's the Wild West right now. If you think about it, we are, if you ever want to experience it, go and do, and and consequences be damned. Taylor.
Yeah. So what's interesting is like seeing just where like we have come from. Like I know a lot of people doing podcasts, doing streaming, doing these types of new media things are younger people who have been formed by the church through different means. Like myself and John come from a youth ministry background. Like we've both been in youth ministry for a very long time. And like we've gotten that formation. And it's what's interesting is there's this pretty direct correlation between like streaming and podcasting and that sort of thing now and what youth ministry was in the Catholic Church like 30 years ago. Like nobody knew what they were doing. There was no formation. There was no oversight. There was like, it was the Wild West for the Catholic Church. And it took a while to where now, like I work for this ministry called Blaze Ministries where we walk with each other. We work in community. We form one another. And one of the biggest things that I've learned in my time in youth ministry, but especially here, is like, the two things that we need are to continually be formed. And there are two ways to do that, even within that. It's like, we need to be, listening to your Scott Hahn tapes or like having people that go to school, but like also in that, like constantly growing through something like apprenticeship. And we think apprenticeship, it's like, I'm a carpenter, I'm teaching you how to be a carpenter. But like within like my podcasting community, like I have people who, when I was getting started, helped me. Like, how do I do this? What do I do here? How do I deal with this type of person? How do I do this? And like now I've been able to do that for other people. And I think that's what's going to happen a lot in streaming. Like a lot of people are looking to John. And like, I know that he has been asked multiple times, what do I need to do to be just like you, right? to do a stream like this. And the other thing that's interesting with all this, if that first thing is true and we are all consistently trying to grow, we have to know in all humility that we are going to make mistakes. Yeah. Anytime we put ourselves publicly, like John's probably spoken heresy at least once on his stream.
He's thinking heresy right now. I can see it.
I've done it on my show, and but the biggest thing we have to remember is like we're human. We are called, but we all are imperfect, right? And like, okay, we mess up. We have it. Like, let's say I said something crazy stupid on the show. Like, I need to come out and correct that eventually, but I can't feel terrible that I didn't know that one canon law, 1827. It's like, I don't know, like we're going to make mistakes and we have to be okay with that. And we can be confident that we're still doing what God's called us to if we are putting our best foot forward in the formation, in our prayer, in our relationship with God.
Okay. Chris, I want to throw to you right now. Cause it's like, I wanted after Chris put some thoughts, I do want to explore the concept of like harassment because, you're going to get it. We're going to trolls. They are going to exist. And I'd like to see what you guys think when it comes down to that, as well as then managing this balance with the fact that like video games can be addictive. They sometimes it's like, oh, I want to do this, but sometimes you got to temper that with like the fact that we're all married men, in this case, but it's like we got real world responsibilities. We can't, in this case, like literally abandon everything and follow Christ because it's like, now we've got wives and kids going hungry, that's not what we're called here to do. But Chris, I want to let you kind of have a kind of a final thought on that last segment that we were just discussing.
I think John really touched on it when you said there has to be this like real life thing. So if there was a convention in another country and it was going to be a chance to evangelize and teach and lead classes for thousands of people, but you weren't teaching back home, you wouldn't go sign up for that. You wouldn't, especially if there was like an application process at all, you wouldn't even apply because you'd be like, well, I should really start maybe teaching at a local Sunday school, or I should be involved with a local, marriage group, at least as a member first. And so you wouldn't bite off. And the internet is no different. It's a huge forum. And so like, on one hand, I would say it's a really good idea to say, if you're not comfortable doing this in the real world, what's making you comfortable online? The other side of that is I'm not saying that that's a total barrier to entry, because the beauty of online is that at the cost of echo chambers, we have this ability to go find people who are like us. And there's a real beauty in that. So if somebody's really struggling in their faith and they live in, I don't know, somewhere where they don't have anybody else who's going through the same struggles, right? So they're in a small youth group and they just don't seem to fit in. Well, they can find other people who can explore that faith with them. And they can find people who are online who are like, yes, I also am a young Catholic and I can't find my way. And so they can go find this sense of community somewhere. But it is also, like John said, where it's only as much of a community as you choose for it to be. Because we're anonymous, because I only chat when I post and when I physically type, nobody can see me on this side of the screen if I'm not interacting with my keyboard at all. And so it can be very lonely. And so you have to make that effort to put yourself out there, to find a forum where you can be a member. And there's a lot of trust. So I think going into like harassment and stuff, there's a lot of trust when you put something online.
John, how do you deal with trust? I mean, not trust, harassment. Like how do you deal with it on your stream? What is your opinion of it? And what, like, if you're also like, if you were apprenticing, you know, being a mentor to somebody who was like what would you, how would you go about that?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, depending on my mood that day, I handle harassment differently on Twitch. Like if someone comes in and they're just as toxic can be, 99% of the time, my mods are just going to ban them and that's it. And I won't even address what they said.
I was almost one of those. I almost got banned the first time I went on.
I was going to ban you after this show. I was just going to be like, all right. But go ahead, John. Go.
But there's been times where someone's come in and said something really toxic, and I could almost tell by the way they said it and by the like the time of the stream that it was, that person really was just broken. And I'm sure a lot of them are. And I was just like, guys, don't ban them. Like, you know, I was like, what's going on? And I'm sorry that whatever happened to you. And, you know, like, are you going through a really hard time right now? Like, I just want you to know you're loved. And no joke, I've had like 3 or 4 people become 8, 9, 10-month subscribers who started off that way and who are now saying that they're praying and that they're going to church and all this stuff. And they were just hurting and they were looking for attention. But I can't do that every single time someone comes in, right? Like if I'm in the middle of a game and I just look over and I see someone's just like really, I mean, the language is outrageous. And they find ways to get around like the auto mod, you know? Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, mods ban them like that. I can't, I've got 10, 11, 12-year-olds watching me. They shouldn't see that stuff.
Right.
So it's this fine line. But as far as how I personally deal with it, it doesn't bother me at all. And I really think that's a grace from God, because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it 100% would have. Even trolls on Twitter 2, 3 years ago, I would be like sad for days. Like, why does that person hate me? And now I'm just like, all right, dude, deuces, you know, praying for you and hope that you have a good life. And I don't take it personally.
Taylor.
And I'm not harassed as much as you might think, which is,
well, I don't think you were getting harassed all the time. I'm just saying that it happens, you know?
Well, I thought it was going to happen literally 100 times a stream. Like going out there in Twitch, which I think is one of the darkest places online, or can be. I was like, I'm going to get hated on every day. And I'm shocked at how little I've had to ban people.
Well, that's actually really exciting to hear. We've only had a few people that we've had to, we kind of just put it at temporary bans and then we release it, but we, you know, rarely hear from them. I like the attitude. It's like, I'm here just to speak my truth and da-da-da-da. It's like you can say what you want to say, but you can say it respectfully. Like, you can easily disagree with me, but like when it comes down to name calling, you're only hurting your argument. Like, you know, it's like, okay, like immediately, just like, he's on Catholic radio. He does like he's a counselor. I cannot for the life of me remember his name. Maybe Taylor, you can. What's up?
Greg Popchak?
Yes. And then his wife, and then you also have he was talking about like when you're in an argument with your wife and they say something, believe them, believe what they're saying is true, because otherwise then the argument becomes about something that it's not. Like, you never take out the trash. Oh, I never take out the trash. Like, I took it out 2 weeks ago. You're wrong, and everything you've said now up to this point is false. So I win the argument. It defeats the purpose of the argument. And that's where it's like, when I see like people name calling, it's like, can we change the language? Like, it's fine to disagree. It's fine to have dialogue. But let's, like, if we can, you know, keep from name calling, because that just goes off the trail. Like, oh, you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. It's like, guys, we're talking about it, like, in my world, a video game, you know, where you're talking about somebody's opinion. Like, how can somebody be wrong about an objective opinion, whether something was fun or not fun? You know, it's like, I had fun. I did not. You're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. Like, okay, guys, like, wait, how did we get to this? Like, okay, let's take a step back. It's cool to disagree. It's fine to disagree. But, I haven't run into it, I think, personally that much. I think what you bring up a good point, John, and I think this is what I see a lot, is that I always kind of describe it kind of the concept of the echo chamber, that's why it's like, I think gaming is an interesting space from being, a Christian to be in, and how I engage with people, because I don't feel like I want to beat them over the head with the Bible. I want to just talk with them about video games, because that's something that we both and everybody can agree on. Beyond that, though, the at its core, I totally lost the point of my thought. Taylor, I'm gonna talk to you. I literally was like, I had the most profound thought. God's like, get it out of here. Like, no, that's a bad point. Go ahead.
That's so awesome. Like, I totally understand your struggle, dude. As a host of a podcast, there are some days where I'm just on it with my questions, right? Mm-hmm. There's other days like, you wrote a book, tell me about it. So,
I remember it now. So it's like the echo chamber being that, like, I feel like a lot of people come in and all they've been doing is screaming into a void and no one's said hi. And I find that sometimes when I come in and say hello, like, oh, hi, like, that's pretty aggressive. Like, are you having a good day? Like, it sounds like you're having a bad day. Like, you want to talk about it? And that diffuses it mostly. Sometimes one guy was like, I'm just telling it how it is. I'm like, you can tell it better. You can tell it how it is, but you can say it better. Like, the English language has a lot of words to use, and you only seem to be in love with 2 of them. But sorry, go ahead. I'm gonna toss to Taylor now. Now that my thought came back to me, it was like,
yeah. So it's interesting because mine's pretty similar. Like, in dealing with people like that, I gave up social media arguments, like public debates, in college. Because I was in college, I was studying theology. I thought I was the smartest person in the world, and I was like, I'm gonna show them. Like, there's no fruit from that. It's just 2 people yelling at each other, and nothing's gonna happen, right? Mm-hmm. So what I started doing is I started doing something similar to what you did. If it was on Facebook, I sent a private message, or Twitter, whatever. Private message. Hey, I'm not having that conversation publicly the way that it's going. But like, if you're local, look, here's my number. I will treat you to lunch, and we can sit down and talk about this. If it's like somebody that's far away, hey, like, look, here's my phone number. Give me a call. We'll talk about this. And like 90%, 100% of the time, it stops the toxic behavior. 90% of the time, they never talk to me again. They just stop putting stupid stuff on my feed. Like 10% of the time, like, I have taken multiple people out to lunch. I have had multiple phone conversations.
I should disagree with you more.
Yeah.
You're wrong, and this is why. Here's my phone number, and I like to eat cheeseburgers.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. It's like, it's not
11:30. What did you say?
Sorry, Taylor, I cut you off.
No problem. It's like, it's not the disagreeing with me. It's the way that people are going about it, right? Mm-hmm. If you just want to come on and yell and look smarter than everybody else, I'm not going to engage with you publicly. I'm just not going to. But if you actually want to have a conversation about this, let's do it, man. I'm totally down for that.
Chris, what are your thoughts? Like, we deal with it. I don't know to what degree, like, your comments are. Usually it's that Chris doesn't like the story. He doesn't like this game. He's what does your wife say that they say about you? You're a condescending tool.
This is what our most recent quote is off from the comments section. So the recent one has been condescending tool. But there were ones before that. Other insults.
Blue mage lover.
Blue mage lover.
It's come out of our lovely comments section, which is overwhelmingly positive. It really is. Usually if people are disagreeing, somewhere in there, because it's the internet, the core thesis of their comment is, I disagree with this person, but then they're going to have to add some insult on there that I'm an idiot or a moron or whatever, because otherwise I wouldn't be disagreeing with them. And so I think the key is just understanding that. And so you can just take those 1 or 2 words out and just dismiss them. And then you can say some level of consistency. So like John was saying, sometimes you can just tell somebody needs just to have their day turned around. And it's just like, hey, you came in and you put a comment like this, and a lot of times Brian and I, like, will just respond to those comments like, tell me more. And so they come in and they're like, you're a tool and everything you said is wrong. Like what? Like, you just, and either A, like Taylor was saying, the behavior stops, or B, it actually turns into something. And some of those people are some of the members of our community that are our most fervent defenders and absolutely do a great job of welcoming new people into the community and things like that, started as people who came in and left hateful comments. And now when somebody else comes in and leaves hateful comments, before Brian or I can respond, that person has said, hey, these guys don't mind criticism. So if you tone down the language, you might actually get a really interesting conversation in response. You're welcome to disagree. But there's no reason to talk like that. And I'm like, that's so interesting to see that person responding with that comment, considering they started on our channel leaving a way worse comment.
And to Taylor's point, like, some of these people I've had a Discord conversation with via voice, because context is easily and can be lost in the actual reading of the text. Because some people will imply, they'll fill in the intent, or they'll fill in like, oh, he's saying this aggressively or things like that. Like as long as I'm not accidentally typing in all caps, you know, it's like, all right, like let's accidentally, like, I agree with you. I am an idiot. Help me to unidiotify myself. But no, that's it's really actually what's really nice to hear through all of this is that it's similar, but it's not prevalent. And, you know, that's always kind of the thing. Like, am I, you know, my worst fear is, you know, in this case, both, you know, teaching falsehood, but at the same time, you know, causing people like distress, like, you know, like I'm not trying to upset you, like, you know, it's like, but that's where I think, and a couple people will come in and they continue to bring in anger and frustration for whatever reason. And I'm like, guys, like I've said it, like you're always welcome to come and we can have a conversation in Discord. You make accusations. I refute those accusations. We can talk about it if you want. Otherwise, have a good day. I love you. You know, I one of the things I like what you end your streams with, you know, John, where you say like, I love you, God loves you more. And it's like that, I think is a fantastic, you know, kind of pivot point to kind of our last bullet point as a part of this conversation is that how do you manage it? Like work, the stream, or, you know, like content creation, podcast creation, family life, being a dad, making sure that, you know, like my dad always says, you know, go to confession, go to adoration, get to work. How do you manage that? Because it's that if you're not filling yourself, like if you don't take like personal care, you can easily not just burn out, but you could end up becoming the thing that which we try to be different. John.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be perfect at the balance, but I've promised myself a couple things that I won't stream while my family's awake. And so I only get to play late at night, unless my wife is like, hey, I'm going to go do something. And so then she'll let me get on earlier, which is always nice. And I promised I wouldn't let it affect my job. Like I can't, you know, I have a full-time job at a parish and I need to serve there. So what's been hurt the most is not my job or not my family, but it's been like my personal health. I'm tired often because like literally, so Tuesdays at night I stream and I work 9 to 9 on Tuesdays and I get home and then I stream from like 9 to 1. And it makes sense. I'm working and then my wife's asleep when I get home. So like it's a stream night on a Wednesday. We can hang out till 10. I'm not going to start a stream at 10. And so it's just like, that's that'll change in my new job because I won't have to work Tuesdays anymore at night so late. But like it's been hard. So personally, I've had to try to be better. And so I've done this Exodus 90 thing, and it's helped a lot because I'm going to the gym and I'm praying more and I'm working out. But I'm still just tired. Like I'm just not like sleeping as much as I should. And so trying to find that balance, I think with this new job where I can have a fresh start at like what nights I'm working and stuff, I can be better about my schedule. But want to reiterate, putting my family first and making sure work is not suffering is something that I've been able to do. And the result of that is just I don't get to stream nearly as much as I would like.
I think the thing, though, that like you're going to touch on about it, that your wife obviously supports this endeavor. You know, for you guys as a married couple, like this would be impossible if, you know, you streaming was causing her stress, right? So that it's like you found that balance to work in as, you know, as a part of your sacramental covenant. Taylor, same question to you, like balance, like how does it work? Your full-time ministry, you know, so the podcast I'm assuming is just a part of what you do as a job, but like how do you take time for that self-care? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So what's interesting is like I took a new role at work on October 1st of last year because my life was crazy out of balance. Like I was doing way too much. And this new role at work actually allows me to do more stuff like this. Like I'm at work right now. This is for work, you know, like part of my job is just to be kind of public, right? Doing the show, like I have a lot more balance now. And what's interesting is like since October, like it's not like I got the new job and everything was fixed because I had all these bad patterns. So what has been happening since like November and December, both like with like my own like daily examination of conscience, like laying in bed, like what did I do well today? I did work well. I did the ForteCatholic stuff well. And I hung out with my kids well. Okay. What did I miss? Good time with my wife, time taking care of myself. okay, guess what I'm doing? Guess what I'm focusing on tomorrow? That. And like, that's how I've been able to do it, because like, I think this like perfect balance in the life of an adult with kids is impossible. So like, it's all just trying to improve and trying to like, instead of just getting so focused on work or so focused on the show or so focused on just the kids or so focused on just the wife and not the kids, like we have to be able to like move that around a little bit. So for me, it's just kind of daily, every other day, looking at it. Okay, what am I really struggling in? Oh, my prayer time. That's what I need to focus on, especially the next few days.
Chris.
I'm going to take a little bit of that and start using that in my life to look down each night. What can I do tomorrow? Because right now my failed day is not being learned from. I just have days that I am not balanced. I think balance is something that I've always really struggled with. And that's because we only get one chance at life, and there's all these exciting things going on, and there's all these just awesome, there's people that you want to hang out with, and there's games you want to play, and there's, and you only kind of get one go round. And so I tend to just keep saying, like, anybody that'll invite me to something, it's like, yes, 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 yes. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm overwhelmed with stress, and they're like, well, why are you stressed out? And it's like, well, because I told Brian I'd play this game with him, and then I said that I'd go do this thing in the evening, and like, and it's my fault. And so I think balance is something that I really don't do well. So the idea of managing and balancing my life is something that's always kind of at the forefront of how do I get better at this. So in the last year, what I've done is I've tried to say, like, what is the role of each thing in my life? So, like, what does gaming do for me? And once that task is being fulfilled, that need, then I don't allow more games in. And so, and that it's sad from the standpoint of all these great games have come out in the last year, and I've had to just say, no, I'm not going to play that one. It was one of my issues with Anthem that I still haven't gotten the game because it hasn't fit into my life, and it has nothing to do with Anthem. Anthem looks great. It looks like I would have a lot of fun playing it, but it just doesn't fit. So the way I manage is I have to honestly look at each time somebody invites me to something and say, is that in my goals right now? I've been listening to some podcasts and stuff where they've talked about, like, you are the summary of the 7 people you spend the most time with. And so if you take those 7 people and you average their faith, the amount of money they make, the quality of their relationships, how often they go on vacation, if you just average them, you're going to be in the center of that. And so if you see you want something different around yourself, then you have to actively kind of swap out your 7. You have to actively say, who in my life do I admire that about? I admire Brian's faith. Okay, how do I find more time with Brian? And there's something a little bit, what I'm struggling with is it feels a little bit selfish, but it's in a good light. It says, like, I admire this about Brian. So we need, I need to Brian and Julie out to dinner more so that Claire and I can have this better marriage by being around people who have a marriage that I admire.
Yeah, it's one of the things about our marriage group, that it's, like, everybody's here to pray for each other, to be pro-marriage, to help, to talk about, like, real issues that marriages face, at the same time then be encouraging that level. It's like, yeah, like, I don't need anybody to tell me, like, you should just go off and do that, like, because, like, my coach always said it in high school. He's like, if you want to be a success, find somebody who's a success and watch what they do, and that is a good step. That's kind of what I heard you say, Chris. Thank you, for sharing that. So for John, Taylor, and Chris, at this point, I want to go around the horn. John, where can they find you? I mean, if we got any final thoughts, we could absolutely do this here as well, but I want to make sure you have ample opportunity for all of us to get back to our work schedule. This has been an amazing conversation. John, final thoughts. Where can people find you? What are you doing?
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Just my last final thought before I share where people can find me is that if you end up coming to my stream at BeardedBlevins, it's I'm learning still. It's a year. I love it. I've got so many ideas that I want to do: Bible studies, small group discipleship on Discord, like so many things that I just can't do yet. So if you find there, stick around and see what's up. But you can find me at Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. Those are my 3 big. YouTube, I guess.
You're working on YouTube, going for 10,000. I know.
What's that?
You're trying to get that 10,000 goal, right, on YouTube?
Dude, yeah, that is a lot harder than I thought. All you YouTubers are wild.
Guys, if you're still watching this, thank you. Go sub to Bearded Blevins over on YouTube. We'll be sure to include links to, like, all y'all stuff in the description below. But yeah. You got to post consistently. That's the YouTube thing. You just got to have some kind of schedule.
Just keep.
Yeah. Taylor, where can people find you? What are your final thoughts, sir?
The final thoughts is just I'm still laughing that you're like, you're the elder statesman here. I'm like, yeah, but y'all have like 18,000 billion followers more than me, so I must be doing something wrong. Anyway,
Jesus at 12, you're fine.
Jesus at 12,
and one of them we're still like, what, oh, buddy?
Yeah, John is my Judas. Everybody can find what we're doing at the show. I travel around, speak, lead worship. So if anybody listening has a parish event or a church event or whatever, I'd love to come out and do that. Look, wink, wink, John. Okay. Find everything at Forte Catholic, FORTE Catholic.com. You can find all the links to social media and the show there.
Chris, what are you working on? Where can people find you? Final thoughts.
Oh, I mean, you can find me right here.
He lives here, guys. He's just like always ready to record.
So yeah, what I'm working on right now is really just gearing up for more YouTube. That's really it. We've been doing a lot of Final Fantasy, and we've been getting more into community nights. So that's been something, more community feedback episodes, more community nights, just kind of refocusing inward and engaging with you guys more. That's really been kind of my big focus right now, YouTube wise. Yeah, personal life is just crazy. So
yeah, right now, like, dude, I got a 6-month-old son. Like, for me, I'm like, woo. I'm just praying that he sleeps through the night. We're getting there. We're getting close. I'm starting to get that where once it tips over into consistency, like, man, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have so much time.
They say that you don't catch up, like you don't start being able to sleep as much as you want to sleep until your youngest kid is 7.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
They literally, I think they have like a little powwow meeting like before bed, and it's like they're like, all right, whose night is it?
Yeah.
And then one day they, for some reason, roped in the dog. All the kids slept through the night. My dog was just like, I got to be outside. I got to be inside. And then nobody got up that whole night. And then I was sitting here, I was like, oh, and then the next night, like, you know, it's like when they start going to school, they bring up, you know, coughing all the time. It's like, oh, I'm never gonna. I'm like, all right, I give it up. I offer it up as a sacrifice, Lord. What I'm working on, in 2 weeks, we've got Larry Czar coming on the podcast. So for those who are fans of him and what he does and his brand of comedy, we've got him to, I think that's going to be a fun episode. I'm working on massive lore concepts, things that I just like diving deep into. We were talking about Anthem pre the show. There's I'm seeing personally a very Christian theme in the story of General Tarsis and her death and supposed resurrection, or maybe her eventual return. You know, and so there's like, I'm like, oh, there's a theme here. This is cool. And so we'll see here. I'm sure that that's going to be incredibly popular. I always like I get the comments. They're like, I like it when you talk about this. Why don't you just talk about this? And I go, well, there's a reason why I just don't talk about the one thing, is that we're not a Final Fantasy channel. Like, I love talking about it, but I don't have any. I don't think anybody would really appreciate me showing up and be like, Final Fantasy, let's discuss. It's like, I have no point to make today. No news to cover. Yeah, and so that's where you guys, you can check us out on Twitch, YouTube, on iTunes. Like, we're now there. We're on the Google Play Store for these podcasts. If you guys have any guests or any kind of conversations that you want us to have, any creators, be sure to also reach out to them, you know, as much as a random guy, like, hi, I do YouTube. Will you come on show? Yeah, people are like, who the hell is this guy? Yeah, let us know. We'd love to have, you know, we're willing to talk to anybody and everybody, as long as they don't curse. It was nice to have a show in this, which is like, guys, hey, don't swear.
Right.
You know, it's like, cool. I think we've all established that here. For Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
And I'm John.
And I'm John.
John. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care. Hey, it's me. It's been a while since I talked to you guys directly this way, but don't tell anybody. We've got even more epic content planned for this channel. The response has been incredible. We hope to see you. If you're new, hit subscribe, leave us a comment. I'd like to talk to you more about video games. I can't seem to speak my language. All right.